Hello and welcome to this week's episode of GIANT's Healthy Innovators TV. I'm your host. My name is Barry Shrier and I'm the founder of GIANT Health. GIANT is a global community coming up to nearly 300,000 people around the world. Our strapline is that we serve everybody whose business is healthcare, technology, and innovation. Our vision is to improve the health and the well-being of people around the world by facilitating and supporting innovation in healthcare and championing the leading innovators in the world of healthcare and technology. What we love to do is we love to bring to you every week some of the world's leaders who are at the coalface of innovation, people that are creating fabulous, important new innovations in healthcare. And this week, like every other week, we have two fabulous people who are joining us. We have Dane from Burgopak, we have Hamish from Thriva. Really looking forward to speaking to them. Before we begin, though, just want to briefly thank our sponsors. Thank you to McKinsey, our knowledge partner, and Vodafone Business, Barclays Bank International, and also thanks to the global pharma company Eli Lilly. We love working with you sponsors, and we're grateful for your support. So hello, Dane and Hamish. Dane, it's nice to see you. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks, Barry. Great to see you.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us. And likewise, hello, Hamish. Thanks for joining us. How are you today?
Hi. Yeah, looking forward to the conversation, Barry. Thanks for having us on.
Good stuff. Yeah, thank you very much. We're grateful for your time. So Dane, we'll begin with you. If you could just introduce yourself very briefly and tell us a little tiny bit about your career and how you got to where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Dane Whitehurst. I'm the creative director at Burgopak, who are kind of an innovative sort of packaging company. We always like to kind of do packaging, but maybe a little bit different, a little bit outside of the box. So my career, I guess, I studied product and industrial design at university. Kind of wanted to, design chairs and furniture and lamps and all of those things. Kind of fell into packaging by accident, and I've loved every moment of it. I've been working for Burgopak for 17 years this year, and it's been an amazing journey. I think packaging is very interesting because it kind of exists at the intersection between a number of different disciplines. You have to understand brand, you have to understand materials, production techniques.
Yes.
Human beings and the way that they behave and operate. And you have to kind of bring all of those disciplines together, often on a shoestring budget. So it's a great challenge, and I've enjoyed for all of that time.
Excellent. No, it sounds extremely interesting, and we're very keen to hear more about that in our discussion. Thank you very much. And likewise, Hamish, if you don't mind, please, if you can just introduce yourself briefly and share with our audience around the world a little bit about your background and what you're doing currently.
By all means, Barry. Yeah. So I'm Hamish. I'm the chief executive and one of the three co-founders of Thriva. So we're a UK-based health technology company. My background, prior to starting Thriva in 2016, I was in sort of fintech innovation for the 4.5 years before that. And prior to that, had a slew of other entrepreneurial endeavors, from a lifestyle brand manufacturing product for Chanel to a skiing business in France and a couple of other notable failures. Tried to launch an electronic receipts business just as digital was sort of coming to smartphones, which never got off the ground. So yeah, my background into health, I just got very personally passionate about how much control you can have over your body. That was probably 10 years or so ago. And I ended up working with one of my two business partners at a prior company, who himself was regularly getting tested for an inherited health condition. And that's ultimately what led to a conversation about how little most people know about what's really happening inside their bodies on a proactive basis. And that was the core insight that led us to starting Thriva. And neither of us were technical, so we needed a third leg of the Thriva tripod, and that's where myself, Tom, and Elliot got joined up to start the business.
Excellent. Oh, very cool. So tell us what Thriva is briefly.
Yeah, gladly. So our vision is actually very straightforward. It's all about building a world where we can understand our health and improve it. And practically, that's all about building a healthcare service that makes it really easy to be, as we describe it, actively invested in your health. So if you think about actually how it works, we have a core platform, and that core platform is if you like, a technology that integrates a suite of laboratory partners who do actual physical testing,
Yes.
And diagnostics, as well as fulfillment infrastructure, and a network of partners who can send nurses out to people's homes, or can allow people to drop in to a pharmacy chain on the high street if they want an assisted collection. And what that means is, either under our own brand, so Thriver historically is better known for its branded experience,
Yep.
where people can come and buy and get a test delivered to their house. They collect a small sample of their own blood, and we make that process, working very closely with Burgopak, as delightful and as pain-free as possible.
Yes.
And they post that back to a partner laboratory, and that is the starting point of them getting a set of results delivered to their smartphone that are easy to understand, actionable, and ultimately link into a follow-on set of services designed to help them improve them. But we also have a B2B side of the business where we power partners. So if you're a business, an organization, a healthcare provider who want to make remote diagnostics a part of what you do,
Right.
it's very complex, and it's something that we've built up a core competency in doing. So you can just plug directly into us, and we can do all of that for you.
Yes, yes. Oh, no, that's very interesting as well. Thank you for sharing that. So, Dane, over to you. Just wanted to hear a little bit about how the Burgopak and Thrive partnership came to be. And I think our viewers would love to hear about how these partnerships not only come to be, but how they develop and what drives them.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think Hamish has got an interesting story about how he first discovered Burgopak. I'll let him talk about that one. But,
Dane and I were laughing about the. Maybe I'll just say this really briefly, Dane. So sure. I bought a piece of packaging of another business that I was just trying to understand, and the packaging arrived, and I fell in love with it immediately. There it is. That's the box. And that little mechanic that Dane's demonstrating, right? It just blew my mind. It was just absolute wow magic. I'd never seen anything like it. And we were very focused on creating delightful experiences for our customers. But I couldn't figure out who was making the box, so I had to literally just ripped it into a million pieces to find this little name, and it said Burgopak, and stuck that into Google, and ultimately led us to their door.
Right. So show us the mind-blowing packaging.
Yeah, exactly.
Where's the hidden Burgopak underneath the flap there?
Yeah. So if anyone, rather than destroying, if ever you want to find the Burgopak details, they are just inside there. We print them on the bridge component. It's usually fairly well hidden, but you can usually.
I understand. Yeah. Maybe Burgopak could find some type of marketing and branding advisor to help you promote your company in a less hidden way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's extremely interesting. So Hamish, you approached Burgopak, obviously, and then Dane, how did that proceed?
Well, I think it's interesting because obviously we're sort of very different companies. We're a packaging company, and Thrive obviously health tech. But I think there's some sort of common values that we share kind of in our approach. I think when Hamish kind of first came to us, I think the packaging brief was kind of fairly simple. Basically build a strong brand that people will like and trust, or help to do that with the packaging.
Yes.
Create a really good kind of user experience, engage people in the process, and also other less obvious things like make the box less than 25 millimeters so it can go through a letterbox.
Okay.
So it's kind of I guess loosely it's basically it's a pretty user-centered approach that we like to kind of follow in the packaging that we design. Anyway, and and the idea really is to kind of improve utility and convenience, and frankly, just build some joy into the process as well. There's no reason why packaging has to be dull and boring and lifeless. And I think the other thing that's worth remembering is that this is obviously a few years ago now, and at that time, home testing was, I guess, sort of relatively unfamiliar to a lot of people.
Sure.
And with that came a number of challenges. Firstly, kind of building trust in that process. Like, how do you make people comfortable with sending their blood and DNA through the post?
Exactly.
And so, things like an unbranded kind of nondescript box isn't really that convincing. So, building something that sort of first of all feels, and makes the brand feel very legitimate is really key. I think secondly, kind of along the lines of adherence. So, basically making sure people use the kit correctly. Hamish, I think when you first came in and met with the team, you basically emptied the contents of a standard sort of blood test kit on the table, and then kind of asked the team to have at it. And I think they got fairly lost and didn't do very well. But it was clear that it wasn't sort of on its own massively intuitive. And so there was definitely a piece there about, trying to create sort of some steps to guide people through the process and help them, hold their hand in a way and just help them to get things right.
Yes, exactly. I think what you're saying is extremely interesting, Dane, and I'm a huge fan of user-centered design, obviously, and I'm sure plenty of us have jumped into an extremely expensive new car and seen all sorts of buttons on the dashboard that don't even make sense. There's so much opportunity for improving the user experience and making things intuitive. But Hamish, just to play devil's advocate briefly in the conversation, why does this really matter? What's wrong with sticking your test kits, for example, in an envelope and just posting them off to your customers?
There's 2 or 3 very specific answers to that question, Barry. I mean, the first is just straightforward commercials. And the reality is that asking someone to collect a sample of any type at home is more complicated than downloading an app on your phone. For some reason, I always use that as the comparator.
Sure.
And if you produce an experience that is suboptimal, ultimately people will either not collect a sample the right way, or they will decide to not collect it at all. And if they then decide to post a less than perfectly collected sample back to the place that it's being analysed, it's very likely to fail. So in that instance, you have to typically reissue the test, and people will attempt it again.
Right.
And we're very proud of the fact that we are on, I don't know what iteration number it is, but it's probably into the 80s on our instructions. They're both physical and digital. They map directly real world to digital world. So we let people see how to link what's in the instruction to the actual physical kit.
Right.
That's some of what Dave was alluding to about that user-centered design.
Yes.
So commercials are key. And the other thing is value exchange. Actually, in reality, you're asking someone to do something that, okay, we're very lucky in one sense, having been through the pandemic. This is now much more familiar, but it's something that was historically very unfamiliar to people.
Right.
And therefore you have a degree of inertia that you have to overcome. And actually delight, excitement, they are cornerstones to helping get over some of that inertia. So for us, putting in truth, more expensive kit together that did communicate more efficiently what is this thing and how does it how do I help people collect a good sample, but also just sharing a little bit of the wow, a bit of the fun to get over that inertia moment so that they can get the real value. And let's be clear, for us, the value is not in the test, it's in what comes out of the test.
Of course.
So how do you optimize toward that end goal?
Yes. No, that's extremely interesting and very helpful further explanation. Thanks for that. So Dane, Hamish has been talking about some of these core themes relating to packaging. Where does that come from? How do you understand what the customer's experience will be to be able to achieve the goals that Hamish has just been mentioning?
I think you have to understand the process. I think there's a number of things. Firstly, I guess part of it is engagement. So, trying to encourage people or maybe empower people in a way to to help begin this step towards managing their own health. So building some joy into the process is one thing. I think as I mentioned, things like convenience. So making it the box 25 millimeters so it fits through a letterbox and no one has to screen for it, or it gets left on the doorstep and you're like, wonder if someone's fiddled with it. So little things like that are important, but then sort of understanding the process as well and the way that people work. So I think I'm going to kind of show you one of the samples. So one of the things.
What's this?
One of the things. Here we go. This is the inside of the Thriver box.
Oh, cool.
So one thing we did
close it again and then open it for us, please.
Sure.
So that comes in the post, right, like that?
This comes in a mailer,
Yes.
And you basically open this up. But the process is segmented into a kind of step-by-step journey. So you kind of create almost hard steps in the unboxing process. So
Nice.
this is the first bit that you do, this is the second bit, and this is the third bit. And you actually compartmentalize those to align with the instructions. And that just helps to break things down a little bit, rather than sort of, you see everything at, all in one go, and where do I start?
Yes.
People a start and a middle and an end. And I think that's really important in terms of understanding the process and breaking it down into manageable chunks.
Excellent. Very cool. Hamish, what was your experience before coming to the partnership with Burgopak? Had you been involved in any kind of consumer testing or user experience type of activities, or was this new for you?
Yes. So I was sort of doing product management and innovation for a big fintech business, and spent a huge amount of time in and around customer research and insight testing and trying to build customer centricity into the core of our product experience. So yeah, very interested in that from the get-go. I was also very lucky that I worked with two other people who themselves were completely fixated on it equally. Yes. So part of the genesis and part of the sort of fuel in the belly, if you like, that motivated us to start the company was seeing what the experience was like at that time. And that was a combination of the physical kit experience that people were having to go through, which was typically very utilitarian, very, very cold, very unintuitive.
Right.
And actually oftentimes still is that. And then the results, both the ordering and the results elements of the service were designed for doctors, basically. They were not designed to be responsibly communicated to an individual.
Oh, okay.
And I think part of the overarching shift that you're seeing across a number of different sectors, typically that are having technology sort of driven into them in terms of the innovation,
sure,
are around how do you have an adult-to-adult conversation with someone and take someone with you? So in our world, as we were seeing in the fintech world, how do we create something that doesn't talk down to people? It doesn't assume kind of anything about them. It assumes that they are capable individuals. Yes, and kind of meet them face to face rather than kind of having this adult to child relationship. So a lot of the little, by way of example, quirks that we put on the side of the box, or it was always bringing both the credibility, the regulation, the science, but also some of that, the humor, the delightfulness, the engagement that is required if you want to ultimately get people to do something a little differently. Yes, exactly. What are some of the quirks on the side of the box? Could you show us, Dane? Are those visible? I was thinking about the little the finger selfie, Dane.
Here we go. Yeah. So this guy. So you customize the plaster, right, afterwards?
Right. Yeah. There's a Thriver plaster that with a little face on it. Right.
That was such a great campaign. That worked really well on social media. We saw loads of fun things.
Yeah. That's excellent. No, I love things like that. So you guys have, I feel like you guys have come a long way already in your partnership, what you have accomplished together, the innovative packaging, the clever quirks, the combination of all the user experience requirements, plus, like you said already, Hamish, the regulatory issues, the healthcare, the technical issues, and so forth. How does that go forward? Where do you guys see this developing over the next few years? I often seem to think to myself, gosh, you do see incredibly interesting, innovative packaging out there. Is that it? How do you move beyond that? It seems like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, there's lots of incredibly interesting innovations, and now all of a sudden there's more, aren't there? So Dane, if you can elaborate on that, is it what? Is it new materials? Is it just ongoing innovation? In the old days, every glass bottle was the exact same shape. Now there's a million shapes of glass bottles on the supermarket shelves, aren't there? I guess there is no end game, but how do these things evolve? How do these things continue to evolve?
I mean, there's innovation can move in lots of different directions, right? I think, to a certain extent, when we design packaging, we build it around the product and the process in mind. So, if the process changes, or, the product, the nature in which you kind of collect bloods and those sort of things,
yes,
may change, and we may reframe the product slightly. We're constantly working on kind of, new, interesting, innovative mechanisms and things like that. We're also, we're launching a range soon, which is aimed specifically at kind of integrating the kind of postal element. So rather than having a separate mailing piece, the mechanism is kind of built into a mailer itself. So that's quite nice, and that will work for some people, and some it won't. I think, for us, it's creating a range of solutions.
Yes,
and I think often, the work that we do is finding the best fit for a brand. We begin with a platform that we've kind of maybe developed in a way, and then it's about sort of customizing that and building an experience that feels right for each individual brand through maybe a step-by-step process, maybe nice kind of work, like co-developing interesting quirks and things into the unboxing and things like that. So it's very much about understanding the individual brand and building an experience around that.
Excellent. That makes sense.
And I guess to build on that from our perspective, there's a couple of things, some of which Dane alluded to already. I think that the open question for me is kind of environmental and green, and what are we doing now that we could do in a different way? Basically, how do we reduce the environmental impact of the kits themselves? And that's not just stuff that sits with Burgopak. There's obviously the kit components as well.
Yes.
So I'm very interested to explore how we can do that. And there's lots of optionality. I'm sure we'll get into that over the course of the next 12, 18, 24 months. Mm-hmm. And then, as Dane was alluding to, just what are some of the changes to collection techniques or methods, and how does the process at home evolve with it? How do you integrate digital and physical better? Some of that is down to postage, like Dane was saying. Some of it's about instructions and guidance.
Yes.
And I still think we've got a decent kind of chunk of development to kind of go through there. I think the degree to which you can integrate physical and digital governs how straightforwardly people experience the stuff at home.
Mm-hmm.
So lots still to do.
Excellent. No, that's extremely interesting. And it's exciting that there is so much, how do you say it, ongoing opportunity. You're a million miles away from the end game, so to speak, which I think makes it more exciting, and the challenge itself is thrilling. Hamish, tell us a little bit, please, about the company and the branding issues, and what's the relationship between branding and a private company like yours, who have obvious requirements for brand identity. What's the relationship between that and healthcare, and is there any tension there? I guess the agenda behind my question is, in countries like the UK, where you have a national health service, health is not necessarily meant to be something provided by private companies. And so, like I said, I'm just wondering out loud, is there a tension there or not at all? And if there is, how do you address that? And love to hear your views on this, likewise, and Dane's.
Yes. I mean, we could probably spend the next hour talking about this one, Barry, but I'll try to keep it to
Great.
Cliff Notes.
Let's do 59 minutes instead.
Well, so I think the first thing to note is that as a business, as I mentioned, we already work with the NHS. So we power hospitals who want to keep people at home but still need to do testing. We're working with We're in a big pilot with a big CCG who are trying to enable diabetes patients to be able to monitor themselves from home.
Nice.
Again, powered by some of our experience.
Yeah.
We're helping clinical trial operators to get into more patient-centric models of care, again, keeping them in the home, but still keeping high caliber testing available to them. So that, I think, is worth flagging. I think the broader question around how does a private business operate within a market that has a single provider like the NHS, my view is very, very straightforward. This is something that in the direct-to-consumer market, people can choose to pay for or to not pay for.
Yes.
Which is one part. And equally, you as a provider have a moral obligation, sometimes it's regulated and sometimes it isn't,
yes,
to ensure you meet the requisite levels of safety and security, governance, process. So take those two things together. If you don't provide a solution that does add value in the mind's eye of the individual, they simply won't pay for it. It's very cut and dried. So
yes, the market tells you, doesn't it?
Yeah, the market will speak for itself, and this is, walk forward 5 years. I think a very clear direction of travel. We will look back at how little we knew about what was happening inside our bodies on an ongoing basis.
Sure.
With a fairly stark degree of surprise. So that's guaranteed. But to walk towards that eventuality, you need to be able to deliver value today. So that's kind of part one. And part two is around this idea of actually operating the right way and doing business responsibly. We, of course, do interact with the NHS, not just because we work with them on the B2B side, but we also every now and then will find something that we've caught early, and there's value in the individual picking that up with their primary care provider, their GP. Yeah. And of course, we have a huge amount of focus in the clinical team on ensuring that bridge is very responsibly dealt with. So either we don't test for things that could cause problems in how they link into the NHS, right, or where we do test things that are potentially problematic if found to be out of the standard reference ranges. Yes, that is really, again, patient-centric, but also trying to make the life of the GP who's receiving that information easy.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, look, it's all trying to be done under an overarching brand banner that says our vision for the world is where people can understand and improve their health. That's the thing. Exactly. And just because you are a bit more well, you shouldn't be robbed of the opportunity to stay well proactively. And if you're a bit less well, you shouldn't be robbed of some of the product privileges that other people might have access to. So how do you make yourself available right across that continuum of health and wellness? And our view is it's only by trying to add value across it that you stand a meaningful chance of achieving that ultimate vision.
Yes, yeah, exactly. No, very, very interesting. Thank you for that superb explanation. So how about from your perspective, Dane, if you could comment on these issues, the relationship between consumers, their view of their health, the state provision of health, where private brands can or should reside in that from the end user's perspective?
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting one for me, sort of, I guess, looking slightly outside, almost kind of looking at it from a patient perspective, Yeah. I think, managing, health remotely, with things like the Thriver kit it fits really neatly with the way that people currently live their lives. I think people are very, very busy, and you can't always take time out, or you don't want to take time out, or to visit a doctor, or and actually these kits are very, very convenient.
Yes.
They're quick, and
right.
and I think that's massive, because it moves you on from not doing anything potentially to doing something, and it gets you over that hurdle of this kind of making that doctor's appointment, and So I think that's really powerful, because it gets people moving. I think, for people that are less well, maybe that's, it's a really great step. For people that are more well, again, it's like it allows you to build to benchmark your health and to start pointing in the right direction. So, I'm quite a keen cyclist, and I'd kind of be interested to understand, like, I think I'm relatively fit, but what bits could be better? Like, how could I improve potentially my performance, or how could I optimize my health?
Exactly.
It feels like a good place to start and to kind of benchmark, and then go back and kind of assess and take on the advice and and things like that. And also, it's a lot cheaper than getting a coach. So it seems like a no-brainer for for things
Exactly.
like that.
Yeah.
And I think just to riff on what Dave was saying, I think there's a false dichotomy that has become pervasive within the healthcare world,
right?
And I think it's a great sadness that the term "the worried well" has become so widely used, because I think it reinforces this false dichotomy, and it assumes people are either well or sick, and that they are binary states. And the stark reality is that is not true.
Sure.
And most of the, let's say, 80% of health outcomes that are not derived from genetics are governed by a set of lifestyle decisions over time. And we know very little about what is happening inside our body in this country on a proactive basis.
Yes.
And I got a very stark reminder of this last night. Found out that a close family member who surfs, he lives in South Africa. I'm, ostensibly very jealous of the fact that he lives in Cape Town and therefore can surf 2 or 3 times a week for an hour a day, super fit.
Yeah.
And as a chef, and he's always on his feet. He had a heart attack this weekend as a consequence of something that he absolutely could have identified, but there was zero sort of symptom derived insight.
Okay.
So when I think about the fact that we, as a very developed healthcare economy, have a quarter to a fifth of our lives, depending on whether you're male or female, lived in ill health, to assume that we're all good, this is us, we're kind of at the apex of what this system can deliver, I think is very untrue. And to assume that we can avoid participative, preventative engagement right across the healthcare spectrum, I think is crazy. I don't think anyone would arrive at that being the right conclusion. It's just a question of where it comes from.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think,
Hamish, I agree. Go ahead, Dane, please.
I was just going to say, I think that the NHS is a wonderful thing, but there's huge demand, and we can't necessarily expect it to do everything. And sometimes, there is a need to supplement the services that it offers, and maybe that's, this kind of hybrid almost, between a national health service and this kind of self-management is quite an important step forward.
Absolutely. No, Dane, I think that's a crucial point. And it's clear that as societies develop and you have very fundamental aspects of change in society, like increasing aging and increasing personal behavioral-led problems like obesity and diabetes and things like that, we know for sure that the demand on healthcare services is going up and up and up and up. It will do so infinitely. I can't imagine any nation anywhere in the world saying we look forward to a future where we deliver less healthcare services than we'd have previously. And yet, obviously, we have limited resources and always will. So there's a fundamental challenge there, isn't there? And what about some of the numbers relating to this, Hamish? I think the points that you've raised are extremely interesting. Could you share with us what are some fundamental numbers regarding testing, regarding what do you call it, home testing, self-testing, and willingness to do so? For example, are we just scratching the surface? And do you see a world 5 or 10 or 20 years from now where everybody is doing quite a lot of testing all the time?
Look, I think we are very much still at the infancy in terms of this entire sector, and I pause there momentarily because what this is will evolve enormously over the course of the next 20 years.
Yes.
And the methodology will very likely become a hybrid version of community, where you can do some stuff at home. You might not even send it off to the laboratory. There might be point of care technology that you can use that sits next to your toaster. It might well be multifactorial. It might be some is fecal, some is sweat, some is urology, some is still derived from blood.
Yes.
It might be you'll be able to drop into the high street to do more of this stuff. So the access to our biodata and what we can infer from it will proliferate for absolute certain sure, because it has to. And the technology will gradually make it more and more affordable. And some of that healthcare inequality, I think, will start to get addressed. I think it'll get potentially worse before it gets better, as the new technologies, as is often the case, cost more and aren't available to everyone to begin with. They will start to become much more readily available, as we've seen with something like wearables. So, yeah, look, I think it's absolutely just getting going. It's probably as clunky now as it will ever be. The good news is that there are solutions coming to market all the time. And we very much see our obligation as Thriver to bring them into our service design to make available as much to the NHS and, providers like them as it is to make it available to, telemedicine businesses who want to make the currently at-home appointment with your doctor, not just that, but able to include a diagnostic potentially. So how do you make all of that suite of capabilities available? And then also, how do you utilize the data and present solutions to people that wrap around the results? So how do they connect into a specialist to talk about it? How do they connect into a prescription where it's clearly the right next step? How do they get personalized content that helps them level up and improve their knowledge and their confidence? So, yeah, our obligation as a business is to attack all of that. Because we think there's a real opportunity to improve the lives of millions of people by doing it. Yes. Now, I would say that, wouldn't I? I'm probably a little bit glass half full and all that stuff. But
of course,
that's the thing that excites me. I get very very, very saddened by potential, human potential being frustrated, being somehow capped. And that applies to every single person in the world. So, look, I think as long as that is real and we're not doing as good as we could do at unlocking that stuff, there will always be innovators like Thriver out there trying to help people to do better.
Yes, exactly. No, that makes a lot of sense. Look, you guys, I'm so sorry. I'd love for us to spend about another 3 hours discussing these extremely interesting and important themes, but we don't have too much time left. So we'll just wrap up if that's okay. Dane, anything you'd like to summarize, or any comments you'd like to share regarding the partnership experience with Hamish and Thriver and your view of the future and where packaging and healthcare come together?
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously it's been wonderful. It's been a great journey working with Thriver from the early stages. We were kind of, I think, started with relatively small numbers, and we've grown together, which has been fantastic. I think it is about creating experiences that feel warm and delightful and are in a way empowering, but also simple, and guide people through these steps and help them along this journey. And I think that's a massive kind of sentiment to kind of build into to all sort of future technology. Hamish, touched on sustainability. I think that's massive. Particularly in the packaging industry, and it's something that I didn't mention earlier, but is huge for us. We spend a lot of time understanding the best materials to use, the way that we can optimize designs to fit as many as possible on print sheets, and kind of localizing production and things like that, and stuff that we kind of do under the surface. But I think it's just such a huge hugely important part for the packaging industry. But I think it's massive in healthcare as well. Something that we should all get behind.
Yeah, superb. No, absolutely superb. Likewise, Hamish, I'm so sorry we have to wrap up now, but in closing, anything you'd like to summarize or any announcements coming up or asks from you and Thriva to our community?
Thanks, Barry. Yeah, look, I'll keep it really brief. We are best known as a direct-to-consumer brand, and we continue to invest a huge amount into making that experience as delightful and as powerful and as impactful as possible.
Nice.
Very soon, you will equally know us just as well for being a B2B provider, where we can power organizations who need access to the insights that remote diagnostics can provide. If that's something that you are interested in understanding, let me know. We'll gladly spend some time and help you understand how we work and how potentially we might be able to help. And that applies to governments as it does to telemedicine providers and insurers and decentralized trial operators. Yeah, look, we'd love to talk to you.
Excellent.
So I'll leave it there.
Nice one. No, superb. Just wanted to announce to all of our listeners that Dane, you and Burgopak have a new case study that's been published, or that is just about to be published. Is that right? How do people hear about that? Is that available on your website?
Yeah, it will be available through a number of channels. Watch this space.
Okay, perfect. Well, look, we'll put the links, obviously, to the Burgopak website and also, of course, to the Thriva website at the bottom of the YouTube channel and on our website. So on behalf of all of our listeners from around the world, Dane, thank you very much. This has been extremely interesting, valuable and informative conversation, and we appreciate your input. Thank you for that. And likewise, Hamish, thanks again. Great to see you. And good luck with the incredibly interesting and valuable contribution that both of you guys are making to healthcare and improving health and well-being for people around the world. Thank you very much. It's
been delightful to be on. Thanks, Barry. And thanks to Dane as well for all the support. It's been,
thanks
been a great relationship so far.
Great stuff. Thanks, you guys. So once again, my name is Barry Shrier. I have been your host from this week's episode of GIANT's Healthy Innovators TV. As a reminder of some exciting things coming up, please go to the GIANT website, which is www.giant.health. We have European Health Tech Innovation Week coming up from the 16th to the 20th of May. That's 5 conferences around Europe, highlighting and showcasing some of Europe's leading innovation and some of the best providers, technology supporters, investors, as well as leading hospital groups and case studies of implementation of successful innovation in 5 of the leading ecosystems of healthcare innovation in Europe. That includes Liverpool, Berlin, Stockholm, Paris, and Barcelona. We'd also once again like to thank our sponsors. Thank you to Barclays Bank International, Vodafone Business. Thank you to Eli Lilly, and thank you to our knowledge partner, McKinsey. Once again, we love working with our sponsors, and we invite everybody to consider engaging with them as well. So thanks, everybody. Once again, this has been this week's episode of GIANT's Healthy Innovators TV. Best wishes. Bye-bye.